He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. Have you ever questioned your true identity? Have you ever felt like you were simply going through the motions, fulfilling expectations without really knowing what fuels you? Most people live confined by beliefs, habits, and patterns that were passed down to them, not consciously chosen. And the longer time passes, the harder it seems to uncover a purpose that is genuinely your own. But what if there were a way to discover your deepest self? What if you could create meaning even amidst the chaos? In this video, we dive into the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche to explore how embracing and living your true identity can become the most freeing journey of your life. The collapse of ancient truths. For generations, humans found comfort in fixed, absolute beliefs. Concepts like God, religion, and universal morals provided pre-packaged answers about our identity, purpose, and direction. Yet Nietzsche observed that these pillars started to crumble as science progressed and rational thought took hold. In a world becoming increasingly secular and analytical, blind devotion was no longer enough. That's when Nietzsche boldly proclaimed, "God is dead, and we have killed him." Friedrich Nietzsche. This statement, so often misinterpreted, isn't a dismissal of faith, but a stark warning. It reflects the idea that traditional values no longer support modern existence, and with their disappearance comes a void, a chasm of existential uncertainty. Without a divine reference, humanity is thrust into a radical freedom. The fall of these former certainties forces us to face a reality without predetermined meaning, one we must now construct for ourselves. And from this point emerges a profound responsibility. Where we once followed, we must now lead our own lives. Nietzsche calls on us to rise to this new state of awareness and confront the most personal challenge of all, to uncover who we truly are, the risk of nihilism and the loss of meaning. As religious and moral foundations collapse, modern individuals are left facing a haunting emptiness. If there's no divine plan and the moral codes of the past no longer guide us, what remains? Nietzsche believed that this lack of purpose opens the door to a dangerous psychological state, nihilism. Nihilism is the belief that nothing holds value, that everything is pointless, and life is merely a meaningless cycle. This quiet despair can be deeply destructive. Many people, upon losing their reference points, simply give up the search. They settle into mediocrity, numb their emotions, and operate on autopilot. Nietzsche saw this clearly and left us a warning. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Übermensch, a rope over an abyss. Friedrich Nietzsche. We exist suspended between what we once were and what we have the potential to become. The abyss below us is nihilism, but it is also an opportunity. Those who face this void with courage can turn it into fertile ground for personal rebirth. The key is to stop running from discomfort. It is to confront the pain and ask, if meaning is not given to me, can I create it for myself? And if I can, where do I begin? The humanities as a refuge for meaning to counter nihilism. Nietzsche offers pathways for rebuilding a meaningful existence. One of the first is found in the arts, philosophy, literature, music, and theater, the collective world of the humanities. For Nietzsche, these cultural expressions could take on a role once occupied by religion, providing solace, insight, and inspiration. The humanities are not merely entertainment or intellectual exercises. They serve as mirrors of the human experience. When we read a novel, witness a tragedy, or listen to a symphony, we're not just consuming culture, we're seeing ourselves reflected in it. Nietzsche saw in this a form of redemption. Through art, we can contextualize our pain, understand our instincts, and realize that we are not alone in our struggles. Even more, we can learn from the suffering of others and discover beauty where there once was only despair. He warns us, read history not just for the facts, but for what those facts teach us. Friedrich Nietzsche. When you approach art with sensitivity, you may find within it pathways toward healing. You begin to see value in life, even when everything feels chaotic or unclear. The humanities urge us to see our lives not as isolated episodes, but as part of a larger narrative. That's why Nietzsche challenges us to use human knowledge not simply to accumulate information, but to enrich the way we live. The Übermensch, defining your own values. Not everyone is inspired by art and literature to revolutionize their life. For those who seek a more daring route, Nietzsche introduces a bolder ideal, becoming the Übermensch, the overman. This is not a figure of superhuman strength, but rather someone who, amidst a disordered and meaningless world, can create their own values and commit to them with total integrity. Man is something that shall be overcome. Friedrich Nietzsche. The Übermensch breaks free from the chains of tradition, rejects imposed morality, and lets go of the need for approval. He is not guided by external commands, but by a moral compass forged through his own experience, awareness, and inner strength. He does not imitate, he invents. Nietzsche believed that very few people in history had approached this ideal. He cited figures like Buddha, Napoleon, Jesus, and Julius Caesar as individuals who, each in their own way, transcended societal norms and shaped their lives with originality and impact. But what about the rest of us, ordinary individuals? We can begin this transformation by honestly looking within. What do we genuinely value? And what do we admire simply because society taught us to? Distinguishing between the two is essential. Freedom is the will to be responsible for oneself. Friedrich Nietzsche. To become an Übermensch is to embrace both courage and responsibility. It means carrying the weight of your decisions and refusing to blame others for your path. It means understanding that if the world offers no inherent meaning, then it is up to you to fill that space with your own truth. And in that creation, there is no formula, only the demand for authenticity and the strength to face life with clarity. Amor Fati, the love of fate. Not everyone is ready to build new values from scratch. For this reason, Nietzsche offers a third approach for those seeking meaning in life. Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It's not just about accepting life as it is, but about embracing everything that happens, including pain, with gratitude. My formula for human greatness is Amor Fati, not to wish for anything to be different, not in the future, not in the past, not for all eternity. Friedrich Nietzsche. To love your fate means to look back at your past, the failures, the losses, the wounds, and recognize in all of it the building blocks of who you are today. Every misstep, every fall, every challenge overcome has shaped your identity. According to Nietzsche, resisting those experiences is the same as resisting your own existence. This philosophy does not promote passive resignation. On the contrary, it demands great inner strength to understand that even suffering has meaning when it is part of your personal evolution. Life ceases to be a puzzle to solve and becomes an experience to live fully and consciously. To welcome your destiny with love is an act of transcendence. It's saying yes to life exactly as it is, not as we wish it would be. It's precisely at that moment that true inner freedom begins. The herd mentality and its dangers. Nietzsche was deeply troubled by the human tendency to follow the crowd, to seek comfort in conformity, and to reject anything that appears different. He called this instinct herd mentality. In his view, most people prefer the safety of obedience over the risks that come with genuine freedom. What we call universal values, what we name truth, has always been nothing more than the personal expression of those who promoted them. Friedrich Nietzsche. The dominant moral code, therefore, isn't objective or eternal. It was created by individuals and eventually enforced as a universal rule. This morality maintains order, yes, but it also stifles creativity, boldness, and independent thinking. And perhaps most dangerously, it creates fear. Fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of being different. Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. Friedrich Nietzsche. This fear often expresses itself in judgment, exclusion, and hostility toward anyone bold enough to defy the norm. Those who are creative, emotionally in tune, or unapologetically authentic are frequently seen as threats, not because they've done harm, but because they disrupt what is familiar. Nietzsche compared this behavior to that of animals that attack the one who strays from the herd. The collective fears the unfamiliar and punishes anyone who dares to challenge tradition. But living authentically requires bravery. To live as an individual, not merely a reflection of the group, is the first step toward true inner freedom. It demands that we break away from inherited morality and make a conscious choice to live by our own values. Leaving the herd may be lonely, but it is often the path to becoming who you truly are. Silencing the inner voices that limit us. From a young age, we internalize voices that shape how we think and behave. Parents, teachers, religious authorities, and friends all leave impressions on our minds. Many of these voices eventually become automatic thoughts, internal critics that restrict us and keep us trapped in herd thinking. Nietzsche urges us to free ourselves from these psychological chains. He encourages a deep cleansing, morally and emotionally. To live your life according to someone else's expectations without ever questioning them is, in his view, a tragic waste. You must leave the herd and shine with a light so bright that it cannot be ignored. Friedrich Nietzsche. How many times have you remained silent to avoid conflict? How often have you abandoned a dream out of fear of being judged? These voices, disguised as helpful advice, often reflect the fears and failures of others, not your own truth. Silencing those voices doesn't mean disregarding everyone. It means learning to separate what genuinely belongs to you from what has been imposed. It's about reconnecting with your intuition and building a more honest relationship with yourself. The journey towards self-discovery demands courage to break away from those influences and start listening to what truly matters, your inner voice. It is at that point that the individual is truly born. The necessary pain of self-discovery. We naturally avoid discomfort. When pain arises, our first instinct is to seek comfort, distraction, or immediate relief. Yet for Nietzsche, this instinct to escape suffering is precisely what prevents us from evolving. Pain is not a barrier to eliminate. It's an essential tool for transformation. No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche. True self-discovery demands that we confront everything we'd rather hide, our vulnerabilities, fears, and contradictions. It's a deeply personal process, often isolating and challenging, but profoundly enlightening. In his essay Schopenhauer as Educator, Nietzsche argues that those who wish to become truly valuable individuals must willingly take the more difficult road, the one marked by continuous self-overcoming. This path frequently leads to solitude, not because isolation is ideal, but because the pursuit of authenticity is rarely understood by others. Growth requires silence, distance, and deep inner reflection. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. When pain is faced with awareness, it can be converted into strength. Every setback can become a teacher, every rejection an opportunity to return to your center. The goal isn't to chase suffering, but to recognize its inevitable role in your personal evolution. Choosing not to take the easier route is an act of inner nobility. Only those who accept their own darkness can uncover the unique light within. And on that path, suffering ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a mentor. The greatest weight, the test of eternal return. What if everything you've lived, each decision, mistake, joy, and hardship, had to be lived again in exactly the same way for all eternity? Nietzsche confronts us with this idea, the eternal return. It's not a literal doctrine, but a philosophical test, a spiritual and ethical mirror that reflects the quality of the life you're living. What if a demon crept after you into your loneliest loneliness one night and said, "This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more Friedrich Nietzsche. This concept, which Nietzsche calls the greatest weight, forces us to reflect, is the life I'm living one I would willingly repeat forever? If the answer is no, perhaps we're living under values that don't truly belong to us, values borrowed, imposed, or copied. The eternal return is like a moral compass. It doesn't aim to punish, but to reveal. If every action, every relationship, every decision had to repeat endlessly, would you feel peace, or would you be crushed by regret? If the thought of reliving your current life forever feels unbearable, it might be time to reconsider, to examine your beliefs, your habits, and your direction, to begin shaping a life that, if lived again, you'd embrace with pride. Only those who live in alignment with their authentic values can bear the greatest weight. That is what separates the true individual from those still imprisoned by the expectations of others. Breaking chains, forging your own path. After turning inward, confronting pain, and questioning the values you've inherited, the most critical step remains: action. Nietzsche's philosophy isn't just about reflection, it's about transformation. And that begins with identifying what holds you back. Sometimes it's an unspoken social rule, a toxic relationship, a draining work environment, or even internalized beliefs we've never questioned. Liberation requires facing these barriers with honest courage. Freedom is the will to be responsible for oneself. Friedrich Nietzsche. The first step is recognizing everything that restricts your freedom to live authentically. Then, one by one, finding ways to dismantle or transform those constraints. That might mean a difficult conversation, setting healthy boundaries, changing your surroundings, or walking away from those who try to dim your light. This kind of liberation doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It can be calm, clear, and irreversible. It's the quiet decision to stop living according to models that don't reflect who you truly are. Breaking both the external and internal chains is the first real step toward living fully. Only those who walk that path with conviction can truly say they've begun to live as individuals. You are unique. Your story, your values, your struggles, and your dreams are yours alone. Nietzsche taught us that to live fully is to act with courage and with creativity, to carve your own path, define your own standards, and become what only you can become. Become who you are. Friedrich Nietzsche. The road is not easy, but it is the only one that matters. Free yourself from the chains, embrace your destiny, and live with boldness and authenticity. Join our community of faith and transformation. Like the video and subscribe to stay connected with future inspiring messages.